Jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. And Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mitbad Paramahansa Padavadika Acharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavadika Acharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Boo, can you turn that on for a little bit? Thanks. Also, can you turn this up a little bit? It's just like nothing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of September 2020 in SanDiego, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the first chapter, second verse, page 33. Sorry, 33. Sanjaya Vacha Drishtva tu Pandavani Kam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Bravit. Sanjaya Vacha Drishtva tu Pandavani Kam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Bravit. Sanjaya Vacha Drishtva tu Pandavani Kam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Bravit. Sanjaya Vacha Drishtva tu Pandavani Kam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyam upasangamya Raja vachanam abravit. Sanjaya uvacha Drishtvat pandavanikam Vyudham duryodhanastada Acharyam upasangamya Raja vachanam abravit. Ed, you're the only one left. Sanjaya uvacha Drishtvat pandavanikam Vyudham duryodhanastada Acharyam upasangamya Raja vachanam abravit. Arjuna vacha. I'm sorry. Sanjaya uvacha. Sanjaya said, Drishtva, after seeing, two, but, Pandava anikam, the soldiers of the Pandavas, Vyudham, arranged in a military phalanx, Duryodhanaha, King Duryodhana, Tada, at that time, Acharyam, the teacher, Upasangamya, approaching, Raja, the king, Vachanam, words, Abravit, spoke. Can you set him up? The right page. Maybe it is the right page. Page 33? Is that page? Yeah, page 33? Make sure it's on page 33. Translation. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Okay, for extra credit, who was his teacher? Dronacharya. Yes. Purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. Unfortunately, he was also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pious since birth. Still, he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage, and Sanjaya could understand his motive in asking about the situation on the battlefield. Sanjaya wanted, therefore, to encourage the despondent king and thus assured him that his sons were not going to make any sort of compromise under the influence of the holy place. Sanjaya therefore informed the king that his son Duryodhana, after seeing the military force of the Pandavas, at once went to the commander-in-chief Dronacharya to inform him of the real position. Although Duryodhana is mentioned as the king, he still had to go to the commander on account of the seriousness of the situation. He was therefore quite fit to be a politician. But Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. Okay, let's read another one. Pashyaitam Pandaputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudhang Drupadaputrena Tavashishyena Dhimata. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Purport. Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to point out the defects of Dronacharya, the great Brahmin commander-in-chief. Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjun's wife. As a result of this quarrel, Drupada performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet as a liberal Brahmin he did not hesitate to impart all his military secrets when the son of Drupada, Drishtadyumna, was entrusted to him for military education. Now, On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Drishtajumna took the side of the Pandavas, and it was he who arranged for their military phalanx, after having learned the art from Dronacharya. Duryodhana pointed out this mistake of Dronacharya's so that he might be alert and uncompromising in the fighting. By this he wanted to point out also that he should not be similarly lenient, Dronacharya, should not be similarly lenient in battle against the Pandavas, who were also Dronacharya's affectionate students. Arjuna especially was his most affectionate and brilliant student. Duryodhana also warned that such leniency in the fight would lead to defeat. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmiditam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So here in this first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we get a good taste of the context. Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters in a very long book called the Mahabharata, which deals mostly with all of this building up to this battle of Kurukshetra. And there's so many politics and different allegiances and affections going on here. And so, of course, it isn't long before we understand that the only calculation that really matters is what Krishna wants, because he's all-powerful, and he is arranged, ultimately, for the victory of Arjuna and the rest of the Pandavas. But it doesn't look that way, especially to those who are spiritually blind. And so Duryodhana was certainly spiritually blind when he took Krishna's armies instead of Krishna himself. And at the same time, Dhritarashtra is also, he knows what's going on, but he has this powerful affection for his son, or sons headed by Duryodhana. And so his real understanding is compromised repeatedly by that, and he gets implicated in the whole conspiracy to steal the kingdom. So there's a lot going on. It's almost like a Shakespearean play with all the different strong emotions and the critical decisions that have to be made. But everything we're reading now is simply a prelude to what we would call Arjuna's dilemma. Because Arjuna, ultimately, he has to fight if the Pandavas are going to win. And so that understanding and his loyalty to Krishna, his understanding of real Dharma comes smack up against his affection for his teacher, for the grandfather Bhishma, and for so many relatives and friends on the other side. And so it's a very stark contrast, if you will, between material desire, which in this case you could say is quite would be wholesome in any other context, and he wants peace. He said, the heck with the kingdom, I'll just go off and beg. But in the ultimate issue, it's wrong, because Krishna wants, for a larger reason, Krishna wants the fight to happen so that Dharma will rule on the earth. So it's very dramatic, actually. And this is the setup here, and we get a taste for Duryodhana. Because you read Mahabharata, you can get a lot more into his personality, and he's he's fixed, on getting that kingdom. That's all he wants, and the Pandavas are standing in the way, and so it's whatever it takes, he's going to try. Murder, we don't care. Cheating, we'll do it. But in the end, he fails. Of course, we know that. So, should we go on? Okay. Text 4. Atra shura maheshvasa bhimarjana samayudhi yuyudhano varatascha drupadascha maharutaha. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyudhan, Virata, and Drupada. Purport. Even though Drishtajumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. So he's setting up, what he's doing here for Dronacharya, as commander-in-chief, is to really, impress upon him the seriousness of the battle. This is not going to be a pushover here. We have some, Bhima and Arjuna are all both Maharathis. They can fight with 1,000 soldiers. And here he says, here's others who are equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Duryodhana and Bharata and Jupiter and so there are others. So in other words, whereas Duryodhana's side has a military advantage, they have the great Bhishma Dev, and they're outnumbering the other side in all the Akshawanis and all these different things. But it's not a walk-on, a walk-off fight. I mean, it's going to be very difficult. So that's what he's impressing on his commander-in-chief there. Drishtaketus Chekitana Kashi Rajas Tabiryavan Purujit Kunti Bhojascha Shaibyascha Narapungabaha. There are also great, heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraj, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja, and Shaibya. Yudhamanyusta Vikranta Uttamau Jastabiryavan Subhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva Eva Maharata. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Asmakam tu vishishtaye Tanniboda Dvijottama Nayaka mama sainyasya Sangyartam Tanbhavimite. But for your information, O best of the Brahmins, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samatinjayaha Ashwatthama Vakarnascha Saumadattis Tataivacha. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Bhurishava, who are always victorious in battle. Report. Duryodhana mentions the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana. Ashwatthama is the son of Dronacharya, and Saumadatti, or Bhurishava, is the son of the king of the Balikas. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya's twin sister married Dronacharya. Okay, for extra credit, who is Karna's father? Yeah, the sun god. So you can imagine how powerful he was. He was born with the armor on, kind of indicating his expertise in fighting. But Kunti was very, very innocent, and she got a benediction from, who was that yogi? Who she cooked for? Vishwamitra? I don't think it was Vishwamitra. Huh? Someone else. Oh no, it was that other one. Yeah, Ambarish. Can't live with him. Durvasa. That's what his name means. Very difficult to live with. Because he's very, very quick to get angry. He's pointing at you. No, that'll be his nickname. Durvasa. Anyway, so Kunti has this benediction. She's just a young girl. She did all the service of Devasa, and he benedicted her that she could call any demigod at any time. So she said, well, let me try it. So she calls the sun god. There's a painting. It's on the, I don't know if you've ever been to Chicago Temple. It's a huge painting on the wall. And well, okay, thanks for coming. Now what? So he explained to her, well, now that I've come, you have to have my child. So what do you mean? I'm a virgin. I said, don't worry. We'll arrange it so you'll still be a virgin. So she gives birth to this child, and It's just like the Bible with Moses, you know. She secretly takes the child out in a little basket, puts him in the river, and down he goes. And nobody knows the difference. So meanwhile, he goes down the river, and then he's picked out of the river by a simple couple, Radha, and I forget, but yeah, he was known as Radha because he was the stepchild of this, and I forget the father's name, but he was like a carpenter or something, simple Sudra. So they have this special son, I don't know what they thought of the little built-in armor or whatever, but so they raise him up, and he's just, he's a natural fighter, and he also. There's one scene where there's a tournament going on. The Pandavas, young boys, they're expert students of Dronacharya, and so this Karna, I don't know if he became a student or not, but he was part of the tournament, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I forget the story, that he won the tournament, or he came very close. He was competing with the Pandavas, but no one could understand that he actually belonged. He didn't know himself that he was the half-brother, Anyway, he grows up, and there's this rivalry. And then the famous one is then when Draupadi, there was a Swayamvara, right? And he wanted to take part. But she decided, no, only the Kshatriyas. He would have actually been able to do it. Was it shooting a fish in the eye? Yeah, without looking, the whole thing, with a reflection somehow. Anyway, he ended up being so angry, that he took shelter of Duryodhana. Duryodhana was very happy to get his services, and so he's on the other side, and eventually Arjuna kills him in the battle. Right after a big battle. So, oops. Sorry about that. So he's praising them, and he very, very politely and properly first praises Dronacharya, Bhavan, first, and then Bhishma, Karna. So there's all of these great fighters. We're getting a list here. He's trying to buck up his own, courage and confidence as well as Dronacharya's. Okay. Anyecha bahava shura marate tyakta jivita nana shastra praharana sarve yudha visharada. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Purport: as far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, and Shalya, all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. That's not exactly what Duryodhana had in mind by saying that, but that's what happens. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. Aparyatam tadasmakam balam bhishma virakshitam paryatam tvidamedhesham balam bhima virakshitam. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Purport: herein an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general, Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. Can we close that? You can close it. There's somebody out there. His conclusion that he could come out of the that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained. It was well ascertained on a material platform. But notice there's somebody missing from this calculation. Who is it? Krishna. He's completely ignoring that Krishna is on the other side, which means he's a total atheist. You know. So this is the miscalculation of the demons, demonic forces. They always discount the divine aspect, and that's why we find repeatedly in the Bhagavatam how we have these seemingly hopelessly outgunned personalities like Bhagavad, who had no defenses at all. All he had was his faith in Krishna and his ability to be completely absorbed in meditating on Krishna. And he was ultimately protected by the most powerful Nrsingadev. And the same is true here for the Pandavas, not only on the battlefield, but all the lead up to the battle. You know, that incredible scene in the House of Lac and so many other, and the gambling match. They all seemed like, well, that's the end. You know, everyone thought, yeah, there they are. There's the female body, and there's the 5 Pandavas. You know, it so happened that a widow with her 5 sons came and stayed in the house, got burned up. But they were always saved because of their goodness. You know, either Krishna directly or the representative, Vidura, saved them and hinted at, informed them what the plan was, and they were able to dig a tunnel out. So that's the case. I was just reading this. I should have brought it, but maybe we'll read it tomorrow morning. We're probably because of the day when Prabhupada arrived in America, and how he was saying how he had to completely rely on Krishna. He had nothing. He had no money. He had no followers. His health wasn't that great. And in fact, there's those remembrances I think Bhadra Narayanan was giving us from the book, Mula Prakriti's book, Srila Prabhupada, a friend to all. How Prabhupada, he was praying and crying. My spiritual master has given me this impossible task to perform, and he really, said, well, he wants me to preach in English. Okay, well, I'm going to write the BTG and in English and preach in India. But after, then his spiritual master, in a dream comes and induces him to take sannyas, and I think there's this whole scene where he's crossing the water, right? To go to America. So Prabhupada, and then that prayer, that Markani Bhagavad Dharma, it just expresses it so beautifully. Prabhupada is just alone, no money, in this strange land which is saturated with the modes of passionate ignorance. And he says, well, it's up to you, Krishna, you brought me here. Somehow or other, if you can make my speaking effective, and somehow break through the barrier of the modes of nature and ignorance. And it took a while, it didn't seem obvious at first, but it came out successful. So it's a, this is the kind of the Mahabharata and the whole thing that the Pandavas overcame. This is an inspiration for great devotees to ignore the odds against success and to try as hard as possible, and Krishna will protect. And the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness is even the effort is a success, even if you're not successful. So many times, devotees, especially when book distribution was first starting, they'd go out, do a few books, do 5 books, and sometimes it'd be very discouraging, you have to go back to the van, that's all this thing. So this is where you get your confidence to go back out there, is the things like this in Prabhupada's life especially, and also not just his life, but the history of ISKCON. Go alone to Germany and start a center. Okay, as long as you keep writing me, Prabhupada. You read those letters, Prabhupada managed the whole thing through these letters, not email, but actual letters, And you can imagine you're sitting alone. I remember I used to go up to Laguna Beach every year for that post-Gopanim festival, and I would see this devotee, Chudhi. I don't know if you remember Chudhi. And and he would tell his story, how he was like 18 years old, and he went to join the one sannyasi who was running a center in South Africa, right? He's coming all the way from America. And I don't know how long it took, but after some time the sannyasi left, and there he's all alone with a bunch of books, and he's got the center in South Africa.
And somehow he kept it going. He made some contacts, and he actually kept the center, going until some more reinforcements arrived. But that's the way it was, and so many miracles that took place, and are still taking place in this movement. So this is, this scene that we're, witnessing here. I mean, these are enormously skilled fighters, and they're all ready to, as described, ready to lay down their lives. And Arjun, comes around at the end. Kadashe Vatanantava. I will do as you say, Krishna. And the whole battle takes place. Okay, so moving along. I think we're on 11. Yes. Ayaneshu ch sarveshu yata bhagamavastita bhishmam eva virakshantu bhavantak sarva evahi. All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Purport. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Dev was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhishma Dev. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya in the battle, because he well knew that they did not even speak a word when Arjun's wife, Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to appear naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Well, probably say while an attempt was being made to force her to appear naked. Anyway, although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that these generals would now completely give it up as they had done during the gambling performances. So there's a whole story there. I remember years ago the BBT was at one point going to print the Mahabharata, and Vidyananda Maharaj was translating away. And the whole Adi Parv, I think it's called, I worked on, There's like, 73 chapters, some of them, kind of more than that. It's kind of, and there's a lot in there, setting up the whole scene, who's who, and there's many stories. And then the second one was called the Sabha Parva, and that's all about the gambling match. And the whole, this scene that he just alludes to here, of Draupadi being dishonored, and Yudhishthir, sticking to his vow, it was this gambling match, but it was a cheating thing. And so the whole thing, the Kshatriya, there's certain set rules. If you're challenged to gamble, you have to gamble. If some woman approaches you, you have to satisfy her. You never, and Yudhishthir, of course, never told a lie. He was very strict in that regard also. So this cheating takes place, and then the Pandavas are stripped of everything. All that they had, I think all the Rajasuya stuff was gone, and but they still were challenged, and so finally they bet themselves, and they lost. So they became the slaves of the Kurus. And then, what else are you going to bet? Okay, Draupadi. So they bet Draupadi. But then there was this debate. But wait a minute, you already bet yourself, so you don't really have her anymore. So this was a false bet and everything like that. So anyway, it was this big argument of what the Dharma really is. Vidura spoke, and this one spoke, and I think Karna got up and spoke. But they said, okay, she's been lost, and they dragged her in. And the whole scene where she was helpless, and finally she just raised her hands, Krishna saved me, and he appeared as unlimited sorry, and they couldn't do anything. Shakuni, he was expert. I asked Gopi Purana about this, because probably they're playing dice. But he said it's more like a Parcheesi game. where you throw the dice and move something. And that's why something's called chess. Is it dice or chess? Well, it's a combination of two. And so I don't know how you can rig, somehow you can rig things like that, So it was, they lost everything. And then I think then Dhritarashtra had a moment of sanity, and he offered Draupadi some boons, whatever she wanted. So she said, well, let me have my husband's back, And then I think they were on their way out, and they said, well, we challenge you again to a gambling match. And that's when they lost, and they were exiled. And then they had to go out, Draupadi and Kunti went with them. Anyways. I'm sorry? I think Dhritarashtra. Yeah, Dhritarashtra. Because he saw that, things were too far gone. Things were really getting too adharmic. But that, that touching the hair of Draupadi was one of the things that, assured that there would be a battle. The whole thing. This strict honor code. All right, one or two more. Text 12. Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vridha pitamaha singhanadam vanadyochai shankam dadma patapavan. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Purport. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana, and out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, befitting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle, because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. But still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. Tatakshankasta bhiryascha padavanaka gomaka sahasaivabhyanta. Yeah. Sahasaivabhyantyanta Sashabdas tumalo bhavat. Well, there's a cognate for you. Tumalo. You ever hear of a tumult? It's the word tumult. Very loud, tumultuous. That's the synonym. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Tatakshveta hayayukte mahatisyandanestitao madavak pandavaschaiva divyao shankau padadmatahu. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. There's a difference. Purport. In the contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Dev, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side, because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayastu Pandaputtanam Yesham Pakshe Janardana. Victory is always with persons like the sons of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there, because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Vishnu, or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated had been donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna. And this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides, wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. And we even have that standard of the white horses. It's always the good guys are on the white horses, right? The Westerns. I don't know where that is from. It's probably somewhere in the Mahabharata. Yeah. Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Paundram Dadma Mahashankam Bhimakarma Vrakodaraha. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta. And Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell, called Poundra. Purport. Lord Krishna is referred to as Rishikesh in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity, and in the case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Here on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of Rishikesha. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana, because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda, because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva, because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandana, because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandana, because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Parthasarathi, because he worked as a charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Rishikesh, because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrikodara, because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks. Vrika is a wolf, and Udara is a belly. So he has a belly like a wolf. Very voracious. Herculean tasks, such as killing the demon Hidimba. So the particular types of conch shell blown by the different personalities on the side of the Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Director, nor that of the Goddess of Fortune, so they were predestined to lose the battle. And that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. Okay, so we can read the next three and then we'll adjourn. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthira Nakala Sahadevascha Sugosha Muni Pushpakao Kashyascha Padameshvasa Shikandi Chamaharataha Drishtadyumno Viratascha Satyakischa Parajitaha Drupado Draupadeyascha Sarvasha Pritavipate Saubhadrascha Mahabahu Shankan Dadmu Patak Patak. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijay, and Nakula and Sahadev blew the Sugosha and Muni Pushpaka. That great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Purport. Sanjaya informed King Dhritarashtra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom was not very laudable. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in that great battle, beginning with the grandsire, Bhishma, down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world. All were present there, and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhritarashtra, because he encouraged the policy followed by his sons. Okay. So we'll stop there and pick that up on Monday, text 19. And we have left enough time for a few little poems, which I picked out here. Oh, got trouble with my back. All right, let's do the Shikshastika. You ready? Okay. You know the Sanskrit too? Okay, so we'll do the Sanskrit, then we'll do the English. Cheto darpanam hajanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam. Yeah, all together, in unison. Cheto darpanam hajanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam shriyakaidava chandrika patadanam vidyavadhu jivanam Anandam buddhivardhanam padipadam purnamitasvadanam sarvatmasnaparam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the chanting of Shri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy name and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. Nam namakadi bahudani jasarva shaktis tatrapitani yamitak smaranena kalaha etadrishitava kripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva midusamiha janenanuragaha. Did you know that one too? Kind of. You know the Sanskrit? Okay. All right. Whoops. What's going on here? Sorry about that. Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? Yet I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name. Trinadapi sunichena, tadorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaneyak sadahari. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. To think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant His name incessantly until the final hour. Now, shall we chant it in 2-line form or the 4-line form? All right, we'll do it regular. Nadanang najanang nasundari kavitam bhajagadish kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavata bhaktidahai tukitvahi. Wealth and women followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. Ayanannatanuja kinkaram patitam ma mishame bhavam bodho ankapayata papada pankaja sita dhuli sadrishang bachindaya. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace, consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. Nayanangadadashadareya vadanangadgadadudhaya gira pulaka nichatang vapukada tavanama grahane bhavishyati. Tears streaming from my eyes, my voice choked with bliss, the hairs upon my body standing up in happiness. When will all these signs of rapture decorate my limbs as I chant your holy name, the monarch of all hymns? Bhajan Ramaras likes that line. The monarch of all hymns. Yugaitang nameshena chakshusha pravashahitam shunyahitam jagatsavam govinda vidahe name. Every moment drags on like 1,000,000 years or more. From the rain clouds of my eyes, the tears and torrents pour. This whole creation is nothing but a vast and joyless void. O Govinda, by your absence I am being destroyed. Ashlishiva paradatang panashramam adarshanan mam hatang karotu va yata tatava vadadhatu lampato mat prananatas tusaheva naparaha. Let Madhava embrace this maid who's fallen at his feet. Or let him trample me, or my most ardent hopes defeat, by never giving me a chance to see him anywhere, thus shattering my heart and plunging me into despair. You see, he is a restless libertine and not a saint, so let him act in any way he likes without restraint. Yet though his cruel and crooked ways may cause me constant woe, Krishna is the only Lord my heart shall ever know. So that's the benediction verse by Krishna's Kaviraj. Prabhuroshik Shastaka Shloka E Padeshune Krishna Prema Bhakti Tara Bhare Dine Dine. Wait a minute. Okay. These 8 essential verses Lord Chaitanya wrote to teach the practice and the goal of chanting Krishna's holy name. Day by day, whoever sings or hears this hymn will reach a little closer to perfection, spotless Krishna prema. So let's sing it or chant it every day. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We'll convene again on Monday. You know,